What is up, everyone? I'm Jeff London. This is the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast. Talking with my buddy Jesse Knock today. This is the second or third time we've been on the podcast. We did one, and then the second one was you, Dan, and I. After I shot that buck, it was hanging in my garage back in Klawock.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah, yeah. So welcome back, man. Thanks for taking some time out of your Tuesday.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate coming on here.
I was looking at your video that you shot of that black bear you got a couple of years ago and just kind of reminiscing a couple of things. The first thing was just, I think it was a 2-3 or so weeks after you took that bear with your bow that you took me to that spot. And just kind of recapping it, just kind of looking through, the creek was a lot lower. You showed me where you shot the bear, where you'd set up, where you set the cameras, and it just really got me thinking about how crazy that whole thing is. So how'd you pick that spot? What were you looking for? That whole setup thing. How'd you go through the process there to pick that spot and make that happen?
Yeah, over the time that area has come a pretty favorite spot of mine. But I found it honestly kind of by Google Earth, and when I'm looking for spots for my spring bear where I like to hunt, I tend to choose the spots that are the greenest, and that's where those bears go. They eat grass in the spring. That's the first thing that they eat is grass, get their digestive system going. And those big males tend to be the first ones that come out right in the spring. So when I'm looking at Google Earth, I'm kind of looking for, I have good luck personally in my, where I hunt bears by saltwater, right off the beaches. And they tend to cruise the beaches looking for clams and just, anything it can eat really, clams, crabs, anything. So when I'm looking for like river drainages that kind of come out into like a tide flat that there's a lot of food, because rivers generally kind of turn animals, they kind of travel them. They tend to travel them down it. They come to a river, they're going to go up or down. So I kind of to stick to areas like that where like a river say dumps out, like you said, we had to cross a river and it was a little bit lower. But those kind of areas tend to draw the bears that I like to hunt. So then once I find an area like that, I'll kind of sit back. I'll go down there. Earlier in the season, I like to trap beaver and do some steelhead fishing. So that all these kind of hobbies that I do all tie into finding these spots for spring bear. It's all kind of a scouting game for me when I'm out in the winter, and that's truly when my spring season scouting starts, is in the winter when I'm out doing other things. I'm kind of just taking mental note of these areas where it's real green and it's real secluded and kind of hidden. The wind's kind of consistent. I kind of take gauge of the wind, and then when it comes time to spring, once the grass starts sprouting up, I start putting some cameras around and start finding some trails where these critters start traveling. And it seemed to that game plan over the years has really worked out. I've took some tremendous bears over the years on some river drainages that dump right on the tide flats. Big timber. It's been working out great for me.
When we saw a couple deer on our way out there, and then we saw some bear when we were there. It was kind of a lackadaisical approach to it, just kind of being out. It was sweet walking around. But when we got to the spot where you talked about, yeah, this is where I set up and the bear was right over there, I'm thinking, cool, man. But like it was just like you and your cameras. Like, what are you thinking about when you check your camera, you see this huge bear, and then you go back in there thinking, okay, it's going to be back there, and I'm by myself, and I'm shooting a bow here. Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. I think that just being around bears, I work at Hatchery, and I have worked at Hatchery for the last 10 years around Southeast Alaska. So I've become, just kind of used to bears. I give them the respect that they deserve. I definitely respect everything about him, give them their distance, and watch them. But at the same time, I'm a lot more comfortable than the majority of people around bears. So when I'm sitting on the ground, if the wind's good, one thing I know, just setting baits and playing around with bears, is that if the wind is not right and if they smell you, you will not see the bear that you want. You might see a small bear or something that's kind of nervous, they don't know, but anything that is any of maturity is not going to be anywhere around if they smell you at all. You will never even hear them. So once they get up close like that, I always have a sidearm with me. I always have I shoot a 10 millimeter sidearm, and I always have it with me, and I always pull it out. It's kind of funny. I set it right on the ground. But I've honestly never really had any real close experience. I've had bears fighting and kind of running around and sitting around me, but I've never really had them, charge for, say, like you hear about. So I guess I've been pretty lucky for the most part.
Yeah, I worked at the hatchery in Kloak when I was in high school, and someone had said something about bears being attracted to the smell of gas. I don't know, but I was running the weed eater up between the hatchery and the lake, and there's that really nice trail that the bears use to get down to the river. And I'm just weed eating, weed eating, weed eating, and I turn, and about 10 feet from me is this bear looking right at me, and I just, oh my god! It was kind of like that. Have you seen that video of that guy who's right outside of Yellowstone? He's the reporter for like NBC or something like that, and he just goes, "Oh my god, oh my god, I'm not messing with you." And so I turned around, and then I'm just like waiting. I don't know what I'm waiting for. It's just like some standing fetal position. I'm thinking, like, is it going to attack or what? My boss happens to come out and says, "Jeff, what are you doing?" And I was like, there's a bear. And I turned around and it wasn't there. But I was like, oh my gosh, oh dude. But it's so much different. You grow up fishing on the Kloak River and you see bears. You're around them. You kind of get the distance type thing. But it seems like such a different mental adjustment to go from I can just scare them off if I need to versus I want to be quiet. I want this thing to be as close as possible so I can shoot it. So when that thing comes in and it's the one, like are you excited? Are you nervous, scared? Like what are the percentages or what's going on through your head? Or are you just like so focused you don't think about anything else?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. Obviously, right when you see the animal, you're wanting, your heart drops, and then that immediate adrenaline spike, and you're kind of shaken. But for me anyway, I get real focused in the time when it comes, I call it like the red zone, when I'm in that range of an animal, and it's within my effective range of my bow, and I know that I'm going to take a shot at it. I get real focused, and I like, yeah, red zone, I call it predator mode. Like, I just focus in on the exact spot I want to shoot, and that's all I'm thinking about, is how I'm going to execute that shot. Because with archery, it's such a mental game, and when you get rattled like that, I've seen a lot of different people handle it a lot of different ways. Some people are as cool as the other side of the pillow. Some people can't even think straight. They forget what they're doing. They even forget. I've seen a guy literally staring at a bear from, no joke, from like 5 yards away, and it's a super trophy bear, and it's the exact one he wanted. It came out of nowhere right below us, and he didn't even know what to do. He was just standing there in shock, and I later had to tell him, shoot this thing. I can't remember what I said, something along those lines. And he did, he shot it. But everybody handles that a little different, and over time, I think, just like mentally practicing, just being around bears and stuff, I get just real calm in that situation. And I do believe that when you do come face to face with a bear, or and you're in those situations to where you have a bear and it knows you're there, I think when you're calm and you just talk to the bear, hey, like, hey bear, real calm, and you make real slow movements and just real calm, the bear, will usually turn around. I think when people get real scared and they react different, and they might like charge the bear, run, and try to yell at it real, loud, trying to scare the bear off. You push that bear into that severe fight or flight decision, and I think a lot of bears, rely on that fight decision on that, rather than flight. And that's my motto, is kind of real calm around bears. You kind of just real slow movements, and they'll see you, and they'll, you give them their distance, and they'll give you your distance, and they go off. They don't want anything to do with humans. I think they get a super bad rap uh, of being, a real aggressive predator, and in my opinion, they're not at all. They're very calm. Every movement, travel pattern is thought out. They're on a mission. They're there to eat, pretty much. They live on their stomach, I guess, like everything else. But bears, it's everything's on their stomach, like,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. That idea of just that basic fundamental self-preservation, it's not it's not advantageous for a bear to just go look for fights. It makes a lot of sense. And I think definitely growing up in Southeast Alaska, and you've been a bear for a while now, being around animals, you kind of get a sense for the way things are. And then when it comes to bears, like, they are scary, but they don't know that they're scary. They just know that they're there. Um, I've taken two bears, both with the rifle, so I'm looking at getting one with the bow this year. So one of my training things with the bow is I've moved from just shooting straight, flat, wide open shots to kind of being behind a tree and setting up my target in the woods a little bit away. And so I have to, yeah, like draw and then move to the side of the tree to just kind of recreate some sort of, there's going to be two trees, there's that bush, but I have to focus in on that target. What are some of the things that you've done to help you kind of train for that moment? Because you can be, if you talked about your effective range, you can have a great effective target range of 60 yards, but then when it comes to adding pressure or adding distractions or trees, that could go way down. So how do you, or how have you been able to do that to where your effective range is your effective range rather than just open target, no distractions?
Yeah, just like you said, I think you nailed it right there. Is putting yourself in those situations to where it makes it a little bit harder. You do put a tree in front of you. You shoot through an opening to where, um, when you do get that open shot, it's a chip shot. It just mentally prepares you again, and this goes back to, the mind. It's just, training that to be so tough, that will, get you through situations more than, what you imagine. And I used to go like up and down shots, like, straight up a cliff shot. I would go out to like rock pits, or go out to I used to drive out to Dude Mountain in Ketchikan, in your country up there, and take a 3D target and a block, and just shoot some incline, and get just comfortable with those elevation shots. Because even like a bear, say like a tree stand in the spring, like we're talking now, you're shooting down, and the gravity doesn't affect the arrow like it does when you sight in your bow flat. And you got to take that into consideration when you're shooting, and it does affect your arrow. And a lot of people don't practice that, and they might hit a little high on a bear or something, and that's not really what you want to, you know, be tracking a bear, especially up here in Southeast Alaska, in the jungle that we have. Um, so yeah, just putting those shots, 3D targets, I think are awesome. I think that's the best way to. Where I grew up in Washington State, around the Mount St. Helens area, there was some 3D courses, and they would have, targets set up in a forest area, and there would be trails going to each target, and they would be, some would be marked, but some tournaments they'd have on the weekends, they'd have a bunch more targets, and they were unmarked. And you might have went through a dozen arrows because you were guessing yardage with your buddies, trying to guess yard. But that practice right there helped out in, excuse me, in hunting season so much. It was like, I really do miss that about Washington. That's one of the biggest things I miss there, is that summertime 3D shooting. Because when it came time for hunting season, you weren't playing around. you were
Yeah.
ready.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Today I went outside and I got some elk calls because I'm hoping to get a cow elk tag in Wyoming. And so I got some of these diaphragms. And so I'm outside in the woods by my house. I'm just practicing my call and I have my target set up. And so I'm practicing my call and just like making these disgusting cow elk noises. And I turn and I look at the road and there's this dog that's just like staring right at me. And this poor kid who's walking his dog. And I'm like, oh, dang it. Oh, man. And I know I'm going to have that kid like next year. Like, hey, were you the guy who was like, making weird noises in the woods with a bow? And I'm like, maybe, don't worry about it. So I could maybe explain that off as being like quarantine, COVID, whatever. Um, but it's such a different thing to do it with the bow. And I've taken one deer with my bow, and I've been shooting a lot. And I got a nicer bow last January. It's just so different, and I don't know. It's so hard to describe, and so many people try to describe the difference. It's just the thrill of hunting, because you can't really say it in a way that's going to sound good for people who don't like hunting. But and then bow hunting, it's making it difficult on purpose. But I don't know, man. Like, what is it about the bow hunting that's different than rifle hunting or just getting meat hunting? What is that? Knowing that there's a chance you could put a bad shot on there. It's just so different. What do you got there?
That that's a tough one, you know. I think you either like it or you don't, you know. It's you're either looking at it like, what are you doing? You know, like why would you even do that? Or like me, I grew up with archery, and it's kind of I kind of went back and forth. I have a big family, so the last few years I kind of tend to bring the gun out more than I bring the bow out in situations to where I really need to bring meat home. But truly, like where my heart lies is archery, and no matter what animal I shoot, if it's trophy or not, I think every time, oh man, I wish I would have got that with my bow. And it's just something that is inside that it's never good enough, unless it is with the bow. And I don't know what it is about it. It's just, I mean, it's crazy because people are, you know, around the country addicted. I mean, archery fanatics, bow hunting fanatics, which is, you know, that's all they do, which is this is crazy cool.
Yeah. When I was looking at percentages for drawing, I looked at the fact that if you go cow elk, it'll be less expensive. The opportunity of drawing is higher. And then during the archery seasons, you're getting a lot less pressure. And so other areas have like archery only seasons. So you think, oh, well, this actually is a strategic move to be able to do the archery hunt, because I'm not out there with, 20,000 other people with rifles. The archery thing is a better way to access that. Um,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what led me into bow hunting as a kid is in Washington State, archery season is extremely longer than the gun hunting season. And the gun hunting season, where I grew up, it was like Orange Army. Everybody came out and they were driving around and just, crushing some timber around, and it was very crowded. I just remember it being very like crowded and people being everywhere. And when I was shown archery hunting, um, at a young age, it was, I related it to being like a ninja. You were sneaking around the woods and it was real quiet and you were sneaking up on animals, and that was my favorite thing about it. Was it wasn't about flinging an arrow at a critter. It was about being quiet in the woods with the woods and sneaking up as close as you could to an animal without that animal being aware. And that to me still this day is where it's at, is that adrenaline when you're with, like with when you're in your effective range or whatever you call it, and it's an animal that you're after. It's like nothing else being in that area.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I know we've talked about it. We haven't recorded it, but I think my best ever deer hunting memory, or at least top three for sure. I'm thinking top one right now just because it's more fresh, but it was my fourth tag. And so I was going out with my bow, and I'm just ninja down to this spot, and I see a doe, and I'm thinking, and I just freeze, and I think, oh, sometimes this time of year there's a buck with a doe, and like my right eye catches a glimpse of these antlers moving. I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And so it's just, oh my, oh, don't do anything, don't do anything. And then it's feeding kind of down, but it's in the woods. It's like in that transition area where there's stuff for them to kind of pick through, and you're not in the deep forest yet. And
Yep.
so as soon as it went behind this tree, and this doe is clocking me the whole time, as soon as it goes behind a tree, I draw, and it needs to clear a little bit of funky brush, and then I'll have a shot. And the doe just moves, and then it takes off, and all I see is like antlers run away. And so I let down. I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And then a half hour later, I'm at a different spot, and I just glimpse something move. And so I look, and I just see eyes looking at me. I can't see anything else. So I take my binoculars up, and I see that there's bases. And so I know, okay, this is a buck. I can't see the antlers, but I know it's a buck, and it's just staring at me. So it's just a stare down. And I've never had a stare down with a rifle before, because the rifle just seems like, you walk through a muskeg, you're hanging out, you see the deer, you shoot it. But like with the hyper focused like bow hunting, like, dude, here it is. And then it moves to the right, and it goes behind some brush. So then I make a move out to the open, and then it comes out in the open, and then it just starts raking this. It's, oh my gosh. And so I draw, and then it just kind of walks away. And so I go 0 for 2 in like 45 minutes of these two bucks. The first one was at least a 3x4. The second one was a nice forky. And yet that is one of my best ever deer hunting days, is an archery hunt that I didn't get either one. It doesn't make sense, but
But that's what's so special about it, is that if you truly like being, animals in general, and just being with Mother Nature, and being right in the, uh, you know, right in the mating game with them, and seeing that go on, and regardless if you fling an arrow or not, is so special to, and whatever time it is. Right now, it's spring bear, and then to be in archery season when those nice bucks are up feeding up in the alpine, and you're sneaking above them up on a rock ledge, maybe 20-30 yards, and they're bedding and chewing on their cud and getting up and maybe tussling with another little buck, just kind of, bumping heads. It's such a special thing to be right there. And then the kill, obviously bringing meat, it's, what you're after is success, but that, to me, in my opinion, that's a very small part of why I truly am, hiking to these wild, crazy places, like, as far back as I can hike in a day to go back to shoot a buck that I could have probably shot, a mile up a mountain, and tell me why I do that, if it's not, for the experience itself.
Yeah. Well, that's part of all of our DNA. There was some point when our ancestors had to do that to survive. It's just a matter of how far back it goes, and so like it's in the DNA. So some people would say today that you're like a defective old model, but man, it's pretty nice. Is there like a bear or a deer or a goat or an elk or something like that that sticks out in your memory as like it didn't happen, but man, that was an experience?
Um, yeah, there, like my nemesis creature, to me is a really big blacktail, with a bow. I shot a couple nice ones with a gun, and it's cool. And I'm not taking anything away from the animals or the harvest, but the couple that stick out of my mind, I missed, and it's actually 2 years in a row I missed a big buck, and I'm not positive it's the same buck, but it was like 200 yards in the same area, probably within the same week, a year later. And it was a big 4x4, and both times they were locked up on a doe, and I called out the doe. And one time I had just shot a buck. I was calling, I set up, and I was calling, and then like 10 minutes go by, and I turn around and look behind me in the wide open muskeg, and this fork and horn is standing there in the wide open, and he's intent on me. And I'm like, oh, cool. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Right on. So he creeps down, trying to get circled downwind of me. And he finally gets to a good range. He's like, I think he's like 40 something. And he's looking at me, and I shot and missed him. Right. And he was facing me. And I'm like, man, what? And then he goes down from me, and he stops like at 34 yards, I think. And then he's like, well within my range. So then I shot, hit him, what I thought was good. He takes off. I'm like, right on. I'm by myself. I'm fist pumping, just adrenaline spiked. Like, oh man, right on. Well, to get him to get down, him when he was trying to go downwind, I was blowing on the deer call like it was a, instrument out in this muskeg. And I turn around and look behind me, and across the muskeg on the next little timber patch, probably 100 yards away or maybe a little less, there was a doe standing there, and she was standing in the wide open. And I was like, man, whoa, and I looked at her, and directly right behind her was this big buck, and he was so intent on her. He was head down, and he was going after her. Well, she was wanting the call, and I blew the call again, and she crossed the open muskeg, and I couldn't believe it. And at that time, it was like, I think that was my second tag that I shot the fork and horn with, and I still had a third tag, even a fourth tag after that, but it was like my third tag. So I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to shoot 2 deer. This is unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. And especially that buck. I didn't get a good look at him, but immediately knew it was something nice. And anyways, they come up all the way up closer, and I'm so nervous at that time. Like I said, big blacktail just make me lose everything. I forget what I'm doing. I don't even know what's going on. Well, this deer stops. The doe stops at it was like 60 something yards, and she's on me. She pinned me down. I'm kind of in a little scrub brush right in the middle of the muskeg, and I like range her, and she's kind of nervous looking at me. And then I blew the call like a dummy. I just, I didn't know what was going on. I was trying to get him to commit a little further, and she was looking right at me when I blew the call. So obviously that wasn't the smart move. So she turned to leave. She knew the gig was up, and she turned to leave. Well, when that buck saw the opportunity, when she turned, he was so into her and so wanting to breed her that when she turned to leave, he saw an opportunity to get on her. And I couldn't believe it. And I ranged him, and it was 62 yards, I remember. And that's right at the end of where I like to shoot. I'll take a 60-yard shot. I practice 60, 70 yards, but 50s to where that's where I really like shooting. But I was like, you know what? I'm full send mode. I was feeling good about the shot previous. So I ranged that thing, and he's standing there broadside, and he had no clue, and he's trying to get on that doe, and I shot, and the arrow went right underneath him, and he had no clue what happened. He knew the arrow like went underneath him and kind of spooked him for a second, but he didn't. I mean, he was so love drunk that I could have shot a gun in the air and he would have stood there and looked at me. But the doe knew the gig was up and she took off. And that's honestly one of the best, like worst bittersweet memories, is watching that big 4x4. I saw him once he was, taking off. I really got a good look at his antlers, and he was a, tremendous, thick, spread out, mature 4x4. And that was one of the coolest things, was watching that big buck kind of pounce behind the doe, and she was taking off, and he was just like, come back. He didn't want her to go. He still really didn't know what was going on. Like you said, that memory, and I didn't take any, I got the other buck. And that's a whole other story about wolves getting that deer, and everything. But that wasn't the memory that came home with me. It was that big giant buck running off, after a miss. And it was, I learned from it.
Yeah. Yeah, you took me to that spot too, didn't you? Because that was the wolf kill, or wolf car. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was quite
wild.
it was quite the spot.
Yeah, that spot is pretty crazy wild over there.
Yeah, it's funny, man. It's this time of year. It's so everything floods back because it's bear season, but that also just brings, like, everything else is just happening. And I'm not April and September are some of my favorite months, just because it's there. I don't know. I just love them. August is the best month. May is a great month, but just that optimism of April is so great. And you get into this, and now it's May. Now it's time. So what's your plan this spring for spring bear? What's the agenda?
I haven't made my mind. This whole Corona fiasco, I had big plans. I had a couple buddies that, 3 really good friends that drew non-resident blackbird tags for Unit 2 this year. And we were gonna, all set some baits and all hunt hunt out of the skiff and just camp and, have a really cool bear camp, really. And that whole thing came up. So then I was kind of, feeling bad for myself and all bumming out. And I told myself that, yep, I'm going to hunt bear myself. I'm going to do it. So I went and set a bait, and within like 2 days, I did some research and found a spot that I kind of like. And one of those, everything's adding up to a big bear. And lo and behold, I put the bait there, and there's a big, giant, nasty bear on it. Probably as we speak at 7:30, there's a bear on it right now. I can guarantee you. That's the funny thing right now. This is the witching hour on a bait right now.
That was the one that you posted. Was that today?
Yes.
You posted that, or yesterday you posted that?
Yep, yesterday.
Yeah, that was a good one. That rub between the eyes, man. Like, that was the last bear that I got, had that rub between the eyes. And it's like, oh, dude, that is so cool.
Yeah, I really like that. When I first came up here, I didn't. It was kind of just like, what in the world is that thing? But over the years, I kind of just take their rugs into character. They're going to be rubbed. The bears that I like to target, those big fawn-eating mature boars,
Yeah.
They are going to be rubbed for the most part. I mean, there is some bears out there, even on this island, that are big bears with no rubs, but they're very few and far between. So you kind of got to take, like me, I think they're cool. Like when I see a bear with a lot of character scars like that, a forehead rub, and even that bear, if you look real close on his face, he is just so beat up and scarred up right there. It's just a lot of character. I'm sure he's seen a, crazy lifetime.
Yeah. What's your number one indicator of finding a big boar? Adam and I don't know if you listened to last week's podcast. He and I are, I don't know, comparable levels of kind of getting into this new bear thing. So what are the big things that you look for whether or not it's a big bear? It's difficult for me if I don't have a frame of reference. Like what's the big indicator?
It's tough, and this gets said all the time that they're the hardest creatures to judge, and that it is 100% right. It's tough. I tend to look at the face. Same thing, kind of with goats. I look at the face, big horse face, but like on a bear, you can tell a lot by their face. For me, the length of the snout is what I look for. The blockiness, the big square front end on it. And then another good indicator is the size of the ears. I mean, that's a big one everybody kind of goes off of. I look for the tiny little ears. The tiny ears usually equal a big bear. Big ears on a bear is a small bear. Another one is a crease in the forehead. I kind of look for most all the bears that usually hit my baits and I see on the beaches when I'm beach hunting usually have that crease on the forehead. They're, mature male bear in Southeast Alaska. They're all nice size here. And then for baiting, it's real easy, if you use a barrel, and that's what's real effective with a bait. There's a lot of mixed emotions on baiting, whether it be in fair chase, whether it be in, just ethical or not. And in my opinion, it's the most effective way to take the target bears that you need to take out of the population to manage. And those bears are killing fawns at like such a high rate. It's not even funny. And if you want to help a deer population to stay like an island lives on subsistence, deer meat, you need to take these big mature boars out that are relying on their nose. And these bears that I get on my baits are those big mature boars that are relying on their nose. And what I found over the years, when I find, where these big bears, there's usually a few big bears in an area.
When you're talking about, you said the same thing that you do when you're hunting goats. I remember when I went on that goat hunt with you, and I'd never goat hunted before. I just seen goats, like it's kind of the same way as I see bears. Like when I'm growing up fishing, I'm like, oh, there's a bear. Oh, it's a big bear. It's a small bear. So whatever bear. But the goat hunt, I'm just like, dude, what are you guys looking at? Is that thing 9.5 or is that 10? Is that 10.5? I'm like, what the hell? We're like 600 yards away, and you guys are like discussing half inches. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. I didn't know if you guys were serious or not. I'm just like, yeah, man. Yeah. And you guys were smart because you guys do. I didn't know jack, so you guys weren't even asking my opinion. I'm like, hey, that's fine, man. I'm here to take some pictures and haul some meat. And that was it. But that was funny. That was funny.
We were definitely playing poker up there above Timberline for sure.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny. What do you think, Jeff? It's like, yep,
yeah.
for sure.
That goat's got some white fur on it. That's pretty cool.
I love that. That's such a crazy, going back and forth about whether an animal grows on the ground or shrinks on the ground or grows or shrinks when you get up closer to it, and it's funny how things work out like that.
Yeah. And that was another introduction to the fact that if you're going to draw that tag, that, it's not that unreasonable to want to make the most of it. Those people who were, right next to us that were camped and they shot that nanny, that was a pretty big nanny, that even though nanny hunting is discouraged, it was, cool. That's great. But if you draw that tag, why would you not also get something that's really big? If you can sort through them, it's the same thing with a buck. Like if you get a big bodied buck, like if there's plenty of around, then I don't see the problem with looking for some bigger antlers. Now, if you're choosing I don't know if it exists, a small bodied 4-point over a big bodied fork, then it's hard to say I'm just in it for the meat. But if you can sort through, man, then why not? Like, shoot, that's fine. Just say what it is too. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think everybody goes up, especially for those tags, on what they believe is, what they're after, really, what their game plan is. And I think that, that family they were, brother and sister and dad. And that was really cool. Actually, I haven't thought about that in a long time, about them being up there in jeans and
the jeans, dudes up there in the Wranglers.
Yeah, and seeing the wolf. And I think they even took a shot at a wolf or seen a wolf before they got the nanny to it, ran down below them in a scree field below. And then I don't know if you remember the bottle of wine that they found buried in the mountains there, which is great.
Yeah. That was crazy. That was so much fun. The weather was unbelievable.
Yes, it was.
It was so good. Yeah.
I don't like that very often.
Yeah, you start stockpiling these sort of things, man, and they're memories on such a different level than anything else. Your hunting memories, your fishing memories, there's nothing else like it. And I don't I don't feel bad because that would mean that there's more people here up to experience it. But part of me does feel bad that people don't have that sort of opportunity to experience and see what it's all about. Even if it's just you packing meat for something, or being and seeing where something like a bow hunt for a huge bear went down. It's just a different level of existence that some people don't get to experience, especially at a time like this. And so I feel almost bad wasting the opportunities to do certain things. And I've convinced myself I absolutely want to go get a bear, or at least try for a bear with my bow this spring, because I'm not going to look back on it and say, you know what, I really wish that I would not have bow hunted for bear in my life. You get
Yeah.
so much more perspective, especially in a time like this. It's like, dude, you live here in Southeast Alaska. These are the things that you can do. Why would you not do them?
Yep, exactly. Take advantage of what you got. My dad instilled that in me in a super young age, and even growing up steelhead fishing where I'm from is take advantage of what you have in front of you. He told me that. He said, a lot of people pay good money for this guided trips, this and that, and you're growing up and it's in your backyard, and you're the local that's on the river or chasing bull elk. And I know during this whole thing, we've been out as much as possible outside doing stuff, taking advantage of anything. And I know all the locals where I live there's been more people out and about taking advantage of the resources than I've ever seen. At one hand, I'm like, oh man, somebody's in my fishing hole again. I haven't seen anybody there in like 5 years. But in time, I'm like, awesome. They got there earlier. It's like, cool. Well, you better get up earlier next time, Jesse. If you want it, and they're there, and I mean that's awesome. Because I'm such a big fan of experience, and if people are getting their kids out off the couch, and this might be a great opportunity. I mean, you think about all the negative and all the bad things that happen, but there's some super positive things happen through this, and it might even be as simple as like a dad finally trout fishing with his son, steelhead fishing, and he hadn't done it in 20 years, and he's not working, and he told the kid, oh, let's go down to so and so creek here on the island, let's go catch a steelhead. And the kid catches his first steelhead in his lifetime. And like for me, that changed my life. Like I still steelhead fish like I'm 12 years old today on the river, on the creeks hiking. And that opportunity might not have happened because life happens and people are busy and other things take priority over things that you might not think are important, but that could change somebody's life, being outside. That they might have needed that. They might have been having the worst day in their life, and they go out, and then it might not even be catching a fish, just being out there and getting some fresh air, getting off the couch, unplugging.
Yeah. Hopefully, as a result of this, you have a different perspective on family and what it means to be part of a family, rather than just driving kids to soccer practice, baseball practice, whatever practice. I got a buddy in California who said that having the kids home, like, we're parents and it's fun to hang out again, like we're doing everything together and it's great. And then also health, mental health and physical health, and eating health. There's a lot of people, the people who are more susceptible to this are the ones that, for one reason or another, may have let some of that sort of stuff slide. So, getting back in physical shape and eating better, maybe that encourages people to get back on there. And that's awesome. Happier people, healthier people. That's great. That's what we want.
Exactly, eye-opening, and it might take that to get, because I know that my eyes opened in the beginning. It was, our family's been doing all sorts of stuff, so it's been, my life. I mean, I hate to say it, like, as I don't want to, people have it really hard, but my life hasn't changed much on Prince of Wales. I mean, we've still been going to work every day. The kids obviously don't have school, but we've been going outside as much as possible fishing, and bear season starting. I'm gonna take my daughter out. I don't think she's ready for her first bear yet, but I want her to experience a bear hunt. I want her to, we don't even have to get one, just see one and maybe sneak up on it or make the attempt, and go, I'd rather we don't even get one for the first one and go, shucks, that, we tried, but, next time, and
Yeah.
get that, to where they're like, okay, cool. Like it's not every time. It's not cause we're pretty blessed up here with density of animals, and to where you go out hunting at a time of year, you kind of expect to get something here. And where I grew up, you didn't really expect to get something. You really hoped, and you worked your tail off to get it, but you weren't coming home every time with an elk, so, it's really cool here to go out, like say with my daughter, and go get her a deer, or have her experience a bear hunt.
Awesome. Well, that's a good closing, man. Anything else to wrap this thing up with?
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it'd be good stuff. Hopefully we got some good stories to share later on. Thanks for the insight, man. Take care.
Yep. Thank you.